God is breaking protocol in this season for his children. So if you've been waiting on a breakthrough, whether that's a financial breakthrough, whether that is a healing breakthrough, whether that's you waiting on God to just open up doors of opportunities for your career or for a new job, a new position, a new car, a new home, just know and believe by faith, sis, that God has answered your prayers and he is moving heaven on your behalf. And so in today's message, I'm going to be talking about my testimony, how God moved me to Texas. Not only did he move me, but he moved me with no job. He moved me with bad credit. He moved me with no income, nothing, okay? And so we're going to get into it. And so, hey ladies, I just pray that everyone is doing well. And yes, so I'm gonna start from the beginning. So the beginning of this year, right, I started feeling a shift in my spirit. And usually when I feel these shifts in my spirit, I get these nudges. I know God is preparing me to do something. And honestly, even if it's something good for me, it's usually uncomfortable first. And so around January, I want to say I started seeking God more deeply in prayer because I knew something was changing. I just didn't have the clarity to know exactly what that change was. And so God started speaking to me about moving. So I want to say about February, God began revealing to me that he was about to move me, February of this year. And so he showed me that I would be getting my own place. And so I'm like, okay, that's awesome. And so just to kind of give a little backstory, right? I'm originally from Orlando, and in 2019, I moved to Jacksonville, Florida, and I lived there, I want to say, approximately 5 to 6 years. And then in 2025, God called me to move from Jacksonville back to Orlando, where I'm originally from. And this time, he was calling me back to Orlando, but he was calling me to live with my parents, my mother and my stepfather. And so that move was very hard for me. If I'm being honest, I did not understand why God would only open a door for me just to move back in with my parents, and instead of me getting my own, versus me getting my own place. And so for me, it was very humbling. And if I admit, there was some pride that was operating in my heart at that time, because moving back home to me felt like I was going backwards. But eventually I obeyed God because I knew, although I couldn't understand it in that moment, he was doing something. And so here I am thinking God was finally releasing me. God started speaking to me about moving again. So here I am now here in Orlando. I'm, living with my parents. And so I automatically assumed that he meant I was going to get my own apartment in Orlando, considering, okay, he moved me from Jacksonville. I've been obedient. I came to stay with my parents. And so now he's going to, because of my obedience, now my reward is to get my own place. That's what I was thinking. And so I started applying for apartments, but then the rejection started, right? I got denied. And if you know anything about apartment applications, the fees and the administration fees, they are expensive. So I stopped. I used wisdom. I was like, I'm going back to prayer, because I wasn't going to keep wasting money if this wasn't God's plan for me. And so kind of fast forward, God started speaking to me about Texas. Months had passed, and here we are now in March of 2026. However, I still had no clarity to where God was leading me. But that feeling in my spirit would not leave me. And if you know, you know, because when God gives you a nudge, or when there's like a knowing in your spirit, it just won't leave you. So the unexpected thought, one day out of nowhere, I felt strongly in my spirit just to simply I felt in my spirit that God was calling me to move to Texas, specifically in like the surrounding of Dallas, like Fort Worth area. I want to say, just to be clear. So my immediate reaction in my mind was, there's no way that God is calling me to move to Texas. I never desired to move to Texas. I don't have any family in Texas. And honestly, y'all, I never even thought about moving outside of the state of Florida, because that's just always where I've, like I said, I was born and raised. So if God was speaking to me about moving to a different part of Florida, I would have been okay with that. That would have made more sense to me. And so I just kept asking God for confirmation. So I started praying, God, if this is really you, confirm it. And y'all, the confirmations started coming in like a flood. It was so many confirmations, so much so to the point where I couldn't ignore them. Okay. So the first confirmation was, I suddenly started seeing Texas license plates everywhere. Now, as long as I have, at a time when I was living in Orlando, I didn't never see a Texas license plate. Even when I was in Jacksonville, never came across a Texas license plate. But the moment I kept just asking God for clarity and just confirm for me, I just started to see Texas license plate out of the blue. It started off small, like may see one every 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It started off small, but it started to get a little progressive. It started to progress, right? And so then the second confirmation, one night I was at an event, one evening, I was at an event. It was me and my mother, and we randomly just sat at this table. I felt led to get up from a table that I was originally sitting at to go move to a different session. So I'm like, okay, why do I feel this nudge in my spirit to go move somewhere else? And I promise y'all, I am not over spiritualized. I'm not like an over spiritual person. Like I just hear from the Lord, and I know how and when He's speaking to me. So I just move and act on it. And so out of nowhere, the woman randomly starts talking about Dallas, this table that God had directed me and my mother to sit at. And so I never asked this lady where she was from. And she just, listen, my body froze, because I'm like, okay, is this like another confirmation, Lord? And so, you know me, I'm just disregarding it, like, just probably in my mind. And so the third confirmation, I kept just seeing U-Hauls back to back. It got so aggressive to the point where honestly I felt like God was like, this is urgent. Like I feel like God was like yelling at me. You know how like when your kids, if any of you guys have kids, I don't have kids, but I know for those that do have kids, your kid's not listening, you may kind of, yell at them. Well, not yell like an aggressive way, but just your tone may change so they can pay attention to take you serious. And I think God was showing me all these U-Haul trucks back to back to where I couldn't miss it, to where He was like, daughter, I need you to pay attention. I need you to believe what it is that you're feeling in your spirit, because yes, I am moving you. And so here we are, because I felt like I was just being a Moses at this point, because Lord, I need confirmation. Okay. And so I just how Moses kept asking for confirmation, because the reality is it revealed itself that Moses was dealing with insecurity. And then it really boiled down to the fact that he just really didn't want the assignment, right? But that's another video for another time. So for me, I felt like I was just asking God for confirmation after confirmation after confirmation, when I really knew in my spirit that God had already confirmed this for me. But God, in His faithfulness and His kindness, He gave me another confirmation. And this was the big one, y'all. And so the fourth confirmation was my stepfather. Now, my stepfather had no idea that God had been speaking to me about Texas. And one day, meanwhile, we was crossing paths in the house. And one morning, he said, if you want, what did he say, Lord? He said, he was basically saying that if you really want me to move there, do I need to fly? No, I'm sorry. I was asking God, I had been praying, asking God if he want me to fly out to Texas, like to confirm this, because at this point, y'all, I'm overwhelmed. So it's like, Lord, okay, if this is you, then I need a plan. What do I do? And so out of nowhere, my stepfather, he just randomly says, God is about to move you to Dallas and you need clarity on whether or not you should fly out there to look at places. Now, how would he have known that? Like, that was my prayer. Like, I need y'all to be, I hope y'all catching what I'm saying here. Because how would my stepfather have known that I had been seeking the Lord about confirmation, whether or not if I should fly out to Dallas so I can scout out the land to see exactly where God was leading and calling me to? My stepfather didn't know anything about Dallas. I didn't talk to him about Dallas, okay? And so that prayer that I had prayed had been a private prayer, and that confirmation really was the last confirmation that I needed. So here I am. I got that last confirmation. I'm looking for flights. I booked the flight to Texas in April, and I flew out. And I was staying in the Fort Worth area because that was the area I felt that God was leading me. And so once I arrived there, I found a few communities. I found about maybe 4 communities that I really like, 4 to 5 communities that I really like. And I toured the amenities and explored the area. I'm like, yes, this is it. Like, this feels like home, okay? But here's where the fear had kicked in. So I just started thinking, oh my God, I don't have no income. My credit is bad. How is this supposed to work? Like, Lord, you called me out of my job. What is happening? And so what made it harder for me is that God had previously told me to leave my job, as I mentioned, and my business that I had at the time, to pursue what he was calling me to do for his kingdom. So naturally, I was just struggling with disbelief, if I'm being honest. So here we are, y'all. Here we are. I finally take that step of faith and I start applying for these applications for these communities, and the denials start to come in. I came back to Florida and I started applying. One apartment denied me because of income. Another denied me because of credit. And so now I'm just hearing and believing all these lies of the enemy. Like, oh, you didn't hear God. That's just you. But in my mind, I'm like, no, it can't be me, because I don't desire to move to Texas. This is not something I want to do. This is not something I prayed God to answer. So this has to be God. I just don't know how he's going to do it. And so, however, my doubt still started growing, and it kept growing. So even though rejection kept happening, something in my spirit would just not allow me to settle. But eventually, I got to the point where I paused and I stopped applying for the apartments, if I'm being honest, because the doubting was just speaking more louder than what God had already confirmed for me. And I just stopped. And so I remember God gave me a dream. I'm getting there, y'all. I'm getting there. I'm sorry. I'm a very detailed person. I have to take you through the details, because I got to show you how God was just in every step. So I just pray y'all just stick with me to the end of this video, because it's going to bless someone, okay? And so here I am. I had this dream, and one night God gave me a dream. And in the dream, he showed me a Pacific apartment community that I really love. And the dream was so vivid and clear. But I ignored it. I'm like, oh, this is just probably my mind, my subconscious, because this is an apartment that I really want out of all the communities that I visit. And I'm just thinking, like, it's just me. I just convinced myself that it was probably, like I mentioned, my subconscious, right? But it was also an apartment that I really secretly wanted. And so instead of applying there, I kept applying elsewhere. Now, some of y'all probably would have had a dream like that and would be like, okay, boom, God answered my prayer. This is the apartment, because I was praying and asking God, Lord, which apartment should I apply for? And me thinking I just know best, I'm like, nah, let me just continue to skip over that and continue to apply for these other communities. And I did that. And so here we are. I'm still just really struggling, y'all. And so I remember hearing in my spirit, give me 3 days. And the 3 days that I heard in my spirit, it was for God to move on my behalf. What I was trying to make sense of, God was about to show me that this is why he needed me to just trust him and move in obedience. And so I ended up applying for that apartment eventually, after I kept getting denied for the other ones of the apartment that he showed me in my dream. So I finally applied, and y'all, those 3 days that I kept feeling in my spirit was the 3 days that I got approved. And guess what? I got approved the same day. All the other, applications I had filled out, it was taking them weeks to get back. Some of them wanted like so much income for me to put down, because I'm assuming I was a high risk, because they couldn't verify my income. However, I'm assuming they was willing to work with me and was asking for like a higher deposit. And I'm like, no. I just wasn't feeling it right in my spirit. And so within those 3 days, that apartment that was in my dream, I actually got approved for it. So the miracle in this is that the crazy part is I had submitted the same documents everywhere else, same bank statement, same identification, same situation, right? Story didn't change. But I ended up still getting approved, and it was because I was right where God wanted me to be. And so this for me was just a reminder that, considering that I had not worked in months, y'all keep in mind that I had not worked in months, my credit score was bad, and on paper, it made no sense. But God, somehow they were able to verify my income. I don't know. To this day, I still don't fully understand how it happened, how they was able to pull and verify income 3 times the rent. But what God taught me was, when God says yes, listen, can't no rejection cancel out God's plan. So even when it don't make sense to us, God will show up. And so what God also showed me is that what I realized, that rejection doesn't always means no. Sometimes God is protecting us because he has something better. And so the whole time the apartment, that I thought I couldn't get was actually the place that God had for me all along. But I had disqualified myself in my own mind because of fear and bad credit and lack of income and what things look like, naturally, and what I would think in the natural, communities would need on paper. But we know that God breaks protocol for his children. So when God is trying to get us to a place where he has an assignment and a blessing located for us in a specific region, God will break protocol, okay? And so this is an encouragement, for you all. And I'm just sharing my testimony because maybe God has been telling you to move. Maybe he's been telling you to relocate, maybe to step out or obey him in some uncomfortable form. And maybe fear is making you second guess what he showed you. But obedience matters, and that's something that I learned. And I just pray that you take that from this testimony. And also what this season has taught me is that this transition has really, really stretched me. It's been uncomfortable. It's been lonely at times. It's required deep trust. But in the midst of it, I'm really learning when God's preparing you, me, us for answer prayers, purpose, and assignment, he will separate us first. And so isolation isn't always punishment. I learned that sometimes, isolation is training, is preparation, is character development, it's endurance, it's building your endurance. It's also you learning how to hear God clearly, and also just grow a intimacy with the Father as well, because He wants and desires a relationship with us. And so the transition has really stretched me, but it has been very, very, very rewarding at the same time. And so, like I said, I don't know who this is for, but I do want to leave with scripture here. So Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 through 6, it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your path straight. And then we have Isaiah 43:19, where it says, see, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? And then we have Isaiah 30:21. This is for a season of isolation and preparation. And the scripture reads, whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way to go, and walk in it. So obey anyway, even when the numbers don't add up. Obey anyway, even when the doors keep closing. Obey anyway, even when the process is stretching you thin. The transition may come with seasons of isolation, as I mentioned, but God is with you in the midst of it. And so we can look at David, we can look at Joseph, and we can look at Moses as examples. They all went through a season of isolation before God sent them. And when God sends us, wherever God sends us, He will see us through it. So if God moved me with no job and with bad credit, listen, sis, He can move you too. He can move on your behalf. So just trust the process, obey the voice, and watch Him work. And so, ladies, I pray that this video encouraged you. And I'm just super excited for what God is doing in the body of Christ, because He is moving. And I just also want to say, if God is calling you to relocate to another state, just go, because the city that you're in now is not your blessing. I thought when God moved me back to Orlando, that's where my blessings were going to be birthed from, but it wasn't. Now I will be sharing another testimony on why God moved me back to Orlando. So I'm back. Sorry, ladies, my phone had died on me. However, as I was mentioning, listen, if God is calling you to relocate from one city to another, or from one state to another, please be obedient and relocate, because that city that you're currently in is not the city of milk and honey. It's not the city is where God is going to bless the land. So just go to where God is doing a new thing and just trust Him. And now Orlando, like I mentioned, I thought Orlando was going to be a season where my blessings were going to be birthed from, this new land that I thought God had for me. But He has other plans here for me in Texas, and I am just looking forward to the new thing, because I know if God sent me here, it's for a reason. If God sent me here, it has to be big. And that's another thing to just keep in mind, that anytime God sends you to a place, you best believe that God has something major for you. So it's a difference versus when you go on your own and when you've been sent by God. So let that settle in. And I also will be sharing another testimony that why God actually brought me to Orlando as well. It's a very powerful testimony. So I just pray that you ladies tune in. I'll be releasing that video sometime next week. And as always, thank you so much for just supporting the channel. Thank you so much for staying with me this long throughout this testimony, and just allowing God to just use me to also encourage those that are in the season of waiting. Until next time, I'll talk to you later. Bye.